Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to listen to this geek history lesson about Mission Impossible. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Jason Justice Inman, and in honor of the release of Mission Impossible Fallout, we're here to talk about the Mission Impossible film franchise, our thoughts, what works, Tom Cruise, and more. So this episode is going to be a little different, mainly because this is the first Geek History Lesson without Ashley Victoria Robinson, who could not make this recording because she is acting like she loves to do. But we have somebody that is also an actor that is here to replace her. He's a film lover, a film champion. He is in the movie Trivia Schmodown. You know him as Samm Levine. Hello, Sam, and thank you so much.
My pleasure, Jason. I'm so happy to be here. I did not realize I'd be replacing anyone. I thought I'd merely be adding.
Well, you're adding and replacing.
Okay, well, yeah. All right. I mean, but I'm not alone.
That's right.
It's not just the two of us in here.
No, we also have an extra bonus guest, also a film lover, also a film champion, as I like to call her, Rachel Cushing.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me on. This is a fun little last-minute edition, and as anybody who follows the movie Trivia Schmodown knows, action movies are not really my thing. This franchise is the one exception. So
I know.
I'm very excited.
I'm
about
excited
this.
that you're here because as soon as I announced that I was going to do a Mission Impossible podcast, you did not stop texting me.
I'm like, they're the ones. It's the one series. Like they just it's so much fun, and it's come a long way, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So yeah. Ready to dig in.
We're really quickly here before we jump into the Mission Impossible franchise. Let's start with you, Rachel. I'd love for you to explain to our listeners, what are your bona fides? Like, why are you a film lover? How much do you know about film? How long have you been watching movies? Why do you love movies?
Oh geez, that's a loaded question. How many hours do we have? But it definitely started in childhood. You know, I'm of the age where Star Wars, blew my socks off, and I was like, how'd they do that? And I want to, work behind the scenes. It was always my angle toward it. I love behind the scenes videos and things like that. And it was enough to get me to go to film school. So I have a film degree from Boston University back on the East Coast. And once I graduated, I moved out to LA to pursue a career in it. I ended up working in television because there's a lot of crossover these days with that. I work behind the scenes as an editor, but I am at the movie theater every week, seeing the latest and greatest from indies to blockbusters. Speciality, as Jason well knows, is the nerd movies, the fantasy, the sci-fi,
yes, the ones about
books.
The Lords and the Rings.
Exactly. But I love all movies, really. I mean, there's I don't think a single genre that I can't at least pick a movie or two out of that I've enjoyed.
Well, I think your whole resume sounds impressive because it may be a thing that I don't know many of our listeners and many fans of the Collider Schmodown may not know, that besides you knowing so much about movie trivia, you are a professional film editor.
I work in the industry.
Yeah.
I tell stories for a living.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. All
right, Sam, how about you? Now, I know you've acted in many films, Wet Hot American Summer, Freaks and Geeks, but...
That film Freaks and Geeks, yes.
Yes, the film Freaks and Geeks television series. We're already cross-pollinating them both because, again, we're talking about a television show that became a movie.
Sure.
Where did your love of film come from?
I'm just lazy. It's easier than reading.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, thanks. It came from my parents. My parents are both huge film nuts. Going to the movies, movie night, staying up late, way past our bedtimes for me and my brother has been a Levine family pastime my whole life. Also, I was a really sick kid. I spent a lot of time home from school, in the hospital, and so movies became a really great way to pass the time and not focus on how sick I was or the fact that I was in the hospital again. And yeah, so I've just been always a fan of films and good storytelling and bad storytelling if it's fun. And action movies have always been one of my favorites.
That's awesome. Yeah. So before we jump into this, in case you have no idea what Mission Impossible is, and we want to point out that at the time of this recording, everybody, we have not seen Mission Impossible Fallout. This episode comes out before the movie's even released, but in case you're watching or listening in the future, We haven't seen it yet, so that's why we're not talking about it.
Can I do a spoiler alert, which are all 100% speculative guesses? Because
Please do.
I have not seen the film.
Right now, let's go crazy.
I cannot believe that they brought back Elizabeth Taylor in 3D hologram form.
Oh, my God.
To ride the horse into the sunset like that at the end of the movie.
I mean, I was more impressed, actually, when Henry Cavill pulled his face off, and he was Jon Voight.
Yep. Jon Voight the whole time.
Jim Phelps, the secret villain of the entire franchise.
Of the whole franchise. He's the architect.
Yes.
Of Ethan Hunt's demise after all this time. He didn't really get crushed by that helicopter.
No.
He got crushed a little bit, but he was fine. They pulled him off the track. Couple decades of rehab, he's fine.
Yeah, it's all good. You know, the channel doesn't go as fast as we think it does. Okay. So
solid spoilers.
Those are great spoilers for Mission Impossible Fallout. Here's a quick 10-cent origin on the Mission Impossible franchise. Now, if you don't know, Mission Impossible is an American television series created and initially produced by Bruce Geller that chronicled the exploits of the team of secret government agents known as the Impossible Mission Force. The series, of course, was filmed and financed by Desilu Productions.
Ooh.
Yeah. In fact, if you don't know, fun fact, Lucy from I Love Lucy fame, she, after her divorce, got to develop 3 television series. And of the 3 television series, 2 of them were very successful. Mission Impossible, Star Trek.
Wow.
And she had to fight to keep both of these series on the air.
Lucille Ball is responsible
for Star
Trek and Mission Impossible.
Of course, it's a woman.
Yep. She saved it all.
Okay, I'm petitioning for a Lucille Ball statue on Hollywood Boulevard starting right now.
Yeah. Fun fact, Mission Impossible, the television series, actually aired from September 1966 to March of 1973. It was then revived in 1988 for 2 seasons on ABC, and then it was made into a full film series starring Tom Cruise. All right, now we're going to go into full spoiler mode on all of these movies. So if you haven't seen these films, please go watch them and then come back later. And then also, I would love, again, each of us to tell about which Mission Impossible movie is our favorite when we get to it. So we're going to start off with Mission Impossible, the first one in 1996, directed by Brian De Palma with a screenplay by David Koepp and Robert Towne. The synopsis is Ethan Hunt is framed for the murder of his fellow IMF agents during a Prague embassy mission gone wrong and falsely accused of selling government secrets to a mysterious international criminal known only as Max. That's right. All right. So thoughts on the first Mission Impossible, guys?
Do you want to kick it off?
All right, sure. Actually, my first memory of this one is I went to see it with my parents, and they were huge fans of the TV series. So, I mean, we all knew Tom Cruise was the star, but he was playing Ethan Hunt, and Jon Voight was playing Phelps. Mm-hmm. So, like, they loved the connective tissue of it all. They also said that I haven't seen the series, but they said it felt very much like the series, but modernized in that perfect way. And I think that sort of encapsulates why that movie did so well, because it had like an old school flair, but it was, a movie of the 90s. I mean, thanks to Tom Cruise. And I love all of the small cameos. You have this cast, and then like 15 minutes in, most of that cast is gone. And, it's a great way to start a movie. And I just remember being really floored by it in the sense that it was a little smarter than some action films, a lot of fun, and say what you will about Tom Cruise couch jumping that came later or whatever. Like, he is a charismatic lead, and he was sort of born to play Ethan Hunt in my mind.
I agree with that. That's a great decision that he is born to play. It is his only franchise, by the way.
Yeah, no, that's a solid assessment. For me, I was 14 years old when the movie came out. It was a perfect action movie for a 14-year-old because the action sequences are fun to watch. I mean, the dangling from the ceiling to steal the knock list, that's such a phenomenal sequence. Of course, Jean Reno playing ultimately a bad guy.
Jean Reno, I forgot about him.
Kruger, I believe is his character's name. Or is it Kruger or Krieger? No, it's Kruger. And then the sequence with the channel at the end. And I will not lie. I mean, the first time I saw it in theaters when I was 14, I was definitely confused as to what was going on with the plot. There were some twists and turns there that I couldn't really follow the first time I saw it. But it did not leave me with a bad taste in my mouth, because upon seeing it a second time, everything made sense. And I was like, I really like what they did there. I think that's awesome. I really enjoyed the hell out of that movie. I thought, John Voight as Phelps, and we already said spoilers. So, the big turn, Phelps being the mole, Phelps being the bad guy. That was great. And it made terrific use of the camera glasses.
Oh, yes.
Which
forgot about the camera glasses.
Which were just imagine that. Like, this was 1996, and glasses with a secret camera in them? That's crazy! And here we are with those Snapchat horrible things, and Google Glass came and went, and obviously people are not ready for Mission Impossible.
If I remember right
glasses.
from the first Mission Impossible, they still get their missions on a cassette tape.
That is correct.
Yeah.
On a little VHS that self-destructs.
On a plane.
On a plane. Yeah. Perhaps the cinema of the Caribbean.
So one thing that this movie introduces that all the Mission Impossibles carry through is the idea that the team leader changes every movie. And generally, for I think every movie, with the exception of Fallout, they change the casting of it, and it's generally a character actor that is pretty well known. This one's starting out with Jon Voight. Do you guys think that's a clever little trope that they carry through all these movies? Is it too similar to James Bond? How do you feel about that?
I don't mind it. I like it. I think if there were, in fact, an IMF, that's probably how they'd operate in the interest of safety and making sure that nobody knows in advance what's going to be on this is your mission should you choose to accept it, VHS or whatever, to subvert the actual mission at hand.
Yeah, and in terms of a movie franchise, I know that it's a balance, right? You want some people to come back because they're, what you fell in love with to begin with, but it's also an opportunity to change it up in every movie. And, the villains too, the caliber of actors, unknowns and knowns that we'll get to throughout this series is really impressive. And so by changing it up, it gives us the opportunity to see all of those people come in and out of the franchise in really great ways. So yeah, I mean, I like it. It's an action movie, spy movie trope in some ways, like a James Bond, but at the same time, like Sam said, it makes sense within the world. But I also just like it because you never know what you're going to get movie to movie.
Well, fair warning, we're going to talk about each of these bosses as we move through the movies, because the Mission Impossible franchise is full of repeat occurrences. Like, somebody always dangles from a wire in every single movie because it's inspired from the very first scene. The boss always changes, and there's always a big, insane stunt. This movie, of course, has almost two of them. One is the dangling from the wire in the CIA, which, by the way, if you ever played the Nintendo 64 Mission Impossible game, which was quite terrible, that was the hardest level, and I could never get past it, and it was a pain in the ass. But go Google that on YouTube and watch how impossible that level is. It's insane. But the Channel, Tom Cruise and a lot of early CGI sort of leaping at the camera, but they use that sequence in every single trailer for this movie. That was how they sold this movie. And it is kind of the climax of the movie, and that has almost become a trademark of Mission Impossible as well. They show you the big stunt in the trailer, and that sort of pulls you in to see the rest of the movie. The movie usually builds to that big event. What did we think about the Channel sequence? And is that a big action sequence? Was it satisfying? What did we think of red light, green light gum?
I really enjoyed it. I remember, you have to put yourself back in, my 16-year-old shoes when I was seeing it, and in the theater with the popcorn and everything else, it was like, whoa, I haven't seen anything like this before in this way. And I really thought that, and I think that we'll get to it, each of the movies has lived up to that in its own way, paying homage but doing its own thing too. It's really interesting what you say about the marketing campaigns for these movies and how they use those stunts as their centerpieces. And you can argue what you will about trailers giving away too much or whatnot, but like Sam said earlier, this movie is so full of twists and turns, and it's plot driven. It's not necessarily action driven, so there's still plenty to see and enjoy, even if that there's this big helicopter in a train sequence coming, because I saw it in the trailer. But I just thought it was fun, honestly. Like, the idea of helicopters never going to fit in that tunnel, and it's going in. It's like, look, that's the movies and that's the fun. And I remember loving it the first time I saw it. And still, 96 CGI, not perfect today, but still, I think pretty good.
It mostly holds up, I would say.
Yeah. And there's also the first red light, green light gum shot at that aquarium restaurant. where he goes running away, and they apparently shot that like for real.
Yeah.
Like if the behind the scenes, like they made that restaurant explode behind a running Tom Cruise. So that's pretty wild.
And I believe too, if I can remember right, it's a combination of two shots. Like the inside of the restaurant's a completely different location to the outside of the restaurant.
Yes, I believe that is correct. For me, the channel sequence is terrific. I didn't mind that they used it in the trailer because at that time we didn't know it was the big climactic scene. And I always have a weird thing when Tom Cruise screams red light, green light at the very end of the movie, right before he smushes it against the outer part of the helicopter. It sounds like he's saying it with a very weird accent. I mean, understandably, he's yelling at the top of his lungs in the middle of a heavy action moment. But I'm gonna hold the mic away from me and actually say it like he says it right now. He goes, "Red light, green light," like he does that.
Yeah.
And if you think I'm kidding, rewatch it right now.
Yep,
he says
do.
light with a lot of O's and U's in it. But it works.
One thing, let's go through some fun facts. I'd love to hear your thoughts about him. Emilio Estevez is the kind of tech guy. He rides on top of the elevator and he gets stabbed by these sharp...
Jack something, right?
Yeah, something like that. Okay. The only reason he was cast in this movie was to give the audience a surprise about why he could be killed, that anybody on the team could be killed at any moment. So that's the reason why they stunt casted Emilio Estevez there. Also, here's a weird thing. This is the only Mission Impossible movie that doesn't feature a gunfight. Ethan Hunt never fires a gun in this film.
That's fantastic.
I hadn't even thought about it like that, and now I'm like running through all the movies in my head, and you're right, like that's kind of crazy.
Because 2 is all gunfights.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're not going to tell John Woo you can't do that. I wonder where that generated from.
I would assume, to me, that screams like a De Palma thing. It screams Brian De Palma, like very much being like, let's make a cerebral movie. These are spies. They're not going to fire a gun because then everybody knows where they are.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Wow, never thought about it before.
Is the first gun we even see in Mission Impossible held by Voight at the end of the movie?
I think you're correct.
Yeah.
I think you're correct. I don't think you see... Well, unless Kruger has one when he's in the CIA. Maybe.
No,
he doesn't.
He uses a knife. That's his weapon of choice.
That's true. Okay, so then John Voight holds the very first gun in Mission Impossible.
That's bananas.
That is crazy. But also, it works for spy stuff. Last thing before... I know we're going to talk about the first Mission Impossible a little bit longer than the rest of them because, it's the granddaddy. It's the first one. So another thing that changes throughout these movies, Tom Cruise's hairstyle.
No.
Just fun fact, do you have a preferred Tom Cruise? Like because his hair does change every single movie of these movies.
Preferred Tom Cruise within the franchise or just in general?
Within the franchise.
Certainly 2 is at the bottom of the list. I don't know what was going on there. And Rachel appears to be nodding in agreement. All right, very well. I don't know. I guess probably MI1, just because it's not a part of the movie.
Yeah.
It's not noticeable.
It's clean cut.
What's going on with his hair? Yeah. I like the shorter look. It's fine.
Rachel, thoughts?
It's sort of classic. I think it's the shortest of the entire series. I'm gonna say MI3.
That's where I'm at too.
Yeah. I think that was kind of a little classic Tom Cruise edged into the character and had it's a little bit longer, a little bit more fun. Just that buzz cut works. I'm not saying it doesn't. And we won't talk about the second movie's haircut, but I'm gonna go MI3.
But we will talk about the second movie now. Mission Impossible 2 in 2000, 4 years later, directed by John Woo, screenplay by Robert Towne with a story by Ronald D. Moore and Brannon Braga, who, by the way, are Star Trek writers.
Oh.
They wrote Star Trek Generations and Star Trek First Contact. The synopsis of this is Ethan sends international thief Naya Nordoff Hall, played by Thandie Newton, undercover to stop a rogue IMF agent and Naya's former lover, Sean Ambrose, played by Dougray Scott, from stealing a deadly virus to start a pandemic and sell the antidote to the highest bidder. Now, here's some fun facts for this one right off the gate. Apparently, the original cut of this film was going to be 3 hours long, and the studio forced John Woo to cut it to 2 hours.
A side note, only because
Yes.
I'm reading off of my crib sheet here as well. It was going to be 3 hours long, and 1 hour and 50 minutes of that was slow motion birds.
I heard that. Slow motion birds, doves.
Yeah.
Lots of doves.
Lots of doves. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all good. So what are your thoughts on Mission Impossible 2? This is a hard left turn for this franchise.
It so turned me off the franchise because as you well know, it then took them, what was it, 6 years
Yeah, it was 6 more years until
to
the next
get
one.
to the next one. So for 6 years, I thought this is dead. They started with a really cool thing, and 4 years later, they went for this weird cash grab, and it just, creatively speaking, did not pan out. I mean, that movie was so galactically different in tone from the first one, which is not to say I'm not taking shots at John Woo. John Woo is a terrific director when you are talking about a straight-up action movie. If you are talking, like Face Off is a great John Woo movie because the plot is ludicrous, and it's allowed to be ludicrous because everyone going in knows what they're going into, and the action sequences in that movie are badass. But the problem was we'd already established in Mission Impossible 1 that even though there's going to be some outlandish action sequences, the realm of reality is important in this world, and John Woo just ignored that.
Yeah.
Like the virus thing and the leaping out of airplanes like that. It right off the bat, I was like, what the fuck am I watching? And then the action sequences were so over the top with the motorbikes on the beach and those scenes. It left such a bad taste in my mouth, and I was really bummed. I thought the MI franchise was going to go the way of like the Fast and the Furious franchise, quite frankly, but without taking 6 movies to get there. Like Fast and the Furious 1 was like, oh, it's a movie about illegal street racers. 7 movies later, they're saving the world from nuclear submarines. I was like, wow, Mission Impossible did it in one fell swoop, one movie to the next. But luckily, it got back on its feet. But yeah, that second movie was a bold misstep for me.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, it was 4 years in between, but like, don't hate me, Bond fans, but like, it felt like some executive said, we want the franchise to be bigger, more Bond-like. So hence the reality that Sam was talking about, the reality of the action and the reality of the plot sort of gets tossed out the window in favor of, flash and explosions and eye candy kind of stuff. And that was kind of disappointing coming off of the first one, because like I said, the reason why I like the first one so much is that it's actually a smart movie. And that's what differentiated it from Bond and from other spy movies. So why not embrace what you establish yourself as being, especially because it was a success. So yeah, I don't know what, I wish I was a fly on the walls in those, development meetings when somebody suggested this was the new direction to go in. And, and it makes sense that you said that it was going to be originally 3 hours long, because it is an uneven film. It is not well paced. It does not build in the way that the first one did in any sort of like really tense, interesting kind of way. You kind of like whiplashing through these scenes. The chemistry of the characters wasn't there in the same way. I actually do love Doug Ray Scott. Any other Ever After fans out there? But he just didn't live up. Sorry, I'm representing the girls on the panel here.
No, it's all good.
So yeah, it was.
He could have been a really great villain, and you could have had a kind of like GoldenEye, where the bomb, whereas the evil IMF agent.
There was a lot of interesting pieces in here, because I also loved Tandy Newton, and Brendan Gleeson's always great. Like there's there were pieces here, but it just. It's one of those things. Maybe it would be we'd like it better if it wasn't called a Mission Impossible movie. Maybe if it was just an action movie, a John Woo action film. But because we'd had a precedent set with the 96 original, this one just, made everybody go, what's going on here? Like, this is stuff we've seen.
One other fun fact about this movie, apparently, is that John Woo, when he directs most movies, he will design the action sequences and then give that to the writers, and the writers are responsible for writing a script that combines the action sequences, which was the case on this movie.
Yeah. I honestly, that You can tell, right?
Yes.
Like, it's reverse engineering it, and you're never going to get a tight, interesting, well-written, well-thought-out story that way, or you're very rarely going to get one that way.
This also was the movie that lost Dougray Scott the role of Wolverine because he was supposed to be Wolverine in X-Men 1.
I'm okay with that. Sorry, I really like Dougray Scott, but Hugh Jackman is Wolverine.
I think it worked out in the long run for Hugh Jackman and us viewers, but I don't know. I wonder if Dougray Scott is still to this day is like, goddamn Mission Impossible 2. Because the filming went long, which, that's what lost him the part.
That's, as an actor, that kind of thing breaks your heart to hear. But there's no way to know.
Exactly.
We'll never know for sure if Dougray Scott had been Wolverine, if he would have gone on to the acclaim and career that gave us Viva Laughlin.
That's right. Sorry to butt in here real quick, Mind University students, but we've got to give thanks to our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by ZipRecruiter. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of job you're working or hiring for, whether that is the Impossible Mission Forces or the Syndicate, it's really difficult to find qualified candidates. And one of the best ways to find the best Ethan Hunt, the best Jim Phelps for your Impossible Mission Force is to use ZipRecruiter. With their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and invite them to apply to your job. And ZipRecruiter is so effective that 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through their site within the very first day. I bet Ethan Hunt has never experienced a recruiting mission with that much percentage of effectiveness. Now, with results like that, it's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is the highest rated hiring site in America. And right now, our listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this web address, ZipRecruiter.com/geekhistory. That's right, ZipRecruiter.com/geekhistory. And that's spelled GEEKHISTORY. ZipRecruiter.com/geekhistory. Get your Impossible Mission Force to 100% because ZipRecruiter, it's the smartest way to hire. Now back to the episode. But one thing that is interesting that Mission Impossible 2 did give us is that because it was such a hard shift, because it was such a hard turn, I think it almost created the characteristic of the franchise that each installment is going to be almost tonally and completely different than the last one. We're going to have a different style. We're going to have a different look. We're going to have a different feel almost every movie. It's almost a little weird that we're going into the sixth movie for the first time having the same director. So it's going to have a very similar feel to Rogue Nation. Now, do you think that is a strength of the franchise or a weakness of the franchise? I actually think that the blessing in disguise that Mission Impossible 2 gave this franchise is that every movie is going to be completely different and going to be fun because of that.
Right. Well, I'm not going to disagree with you because you're right. It's the first one with the same director. However, since the third one, J.J. Abrams has been on as director and now producer. So it's my understanding that he remains somewhat heavily involved in the production and direction.
They do have a similar tonish feel.
Yeah,
almost.
And so starting with the third one is what bridges the gap between the different feels of the first two movies and what they have become now. And I don't necessarily find it a coup that each one has such a different feel and look. But I don't think it's detrimental in any way. Mm-hmm. It's nice. I mean, if anything, the different look and feel of 3, 4, and 5 show us just how bad 2 was by reference. But I don't know. I think Ghost Protocol, and not to jump around, but Ghost Protocol had a considerably different look than 3, and 3 had a considerably different look and feel than 2 and 1. Mm-hmm. So, but I felt like they were getting better. Like, almost pretending 2 didn't happen. If it had gone 1, 3, 4,
basically,
I'd have been like, "This is fucking great. Where are they going next?" Or if it stays the same, I'm happy. If it changes, but it changes for the better, I'm happy. So for me, I didn't mind it as long as the quality and storytelling and action sequences remained fun.
All right, let's move on into, unless you have any final thoughts on Mission Impossible 2, Rachel.
Nah, the less we say, the better.
All right, it's good.
Let's move on to a good one.
Let's move into Mission Impossible 3 in 2006, directed by J.J. Abrams, his first feature film. It was written by Alex Kurtzman, Roberto Orsi, and J.J. Abrams. Ethan, retired from being an IMF agent team leader and engaged to be married, assembles a team to face the elusive arms and information broker Owen Davian, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, who intends to sell a mysterious, dangerous object known as the Rabbit's Foot. Now, personally, I'm going to tell you, this is my favorite Mission Impossible film.
It's not mine, but it's in a fight with mine.
Okay, interesting.
I love this one.
Yeah. It's such this one to me feels more like the TV show than any of the other movies, which is weird. And I think maybe that was on purpose by J.J. Abrams. But if I were to give any knock to this movie, to me, I don't know. I understand the reasoning to give Ethan a relationship and to almost marry him and make him a married man, because you want to differentiate, you want to explore that character and how his job fights with that relationship. But every movie since then, we've had to fight against that or explain why this guy isn't going back to the woman he loves, which I think almost every time we come to that scene in every previous movie or movie after this, I feel like it kind of knocks that movie down a little bit. And again, we haven't seen the amazing scene in Mission Impossible Fallout where Henry Cavill, of course, steals his wife and flies her to the top of the Swiss Alps and throws her out of a helicopter. Spoilers for Mission Impossible Fallout. But she's in that movie. And, that's another part where I'm like, well, I don't know, man. Like, if you love her so much, just go to her. What's wrong with you?
See, it's funny. I love it. And maybe we're drawing gender lines here. I'm not sure. But, there's... anytime you can flesh out a character to have motivations, of conflicting motivations, I think is a good thing. And I think that it's incredibly interesting to start this movie with him not being in the field and him being in a relationship and training recruits. And I love Kerry Russell. And
Kerry Russell's great in this movie, by the way.
So to me, that was like a layer. And I really liked that layer. And then to come out of this movie and moving into the other ones where he's back in the field but still having, Julie, what's her name? Oh my God,
yeah,
the wife.
I think that's
Julie.
Right. I think it's
Julia.
Julia.
Okay. Michelle Monaghan. Yes. Yeah, that works. To have her in the back of his head on every mission, I think there's just that's just a tiny little complexity. And we'll talk about Ghost Protocol and Jeremy Renner and what all of that means. And I thought that was a great add, a great twist. And then, I'm very curious to see where Fallout comes from, or goes with it, excuse me. My love for MI3, it starts with, and I won't say ends with, because there's plenty else I love, but it's Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yes.
As Owen Davian. I mean, it's the best villain of the series.
Agreed.
I think. The interrogation scene to me is just, it's having Oscar-worthy acting in an action movie.
And in perfect J.J. Abrams fashion, they start the movie out of chronological sequence with that scene.
Mm-hmm. It's just the right way to right in the ship after 2. I mean, as soon as I had that, and I was like, okay, we're back on track here. And then to fill out, I mean, we're talking about the different IMF leaders. Lawrence Fishburne is in this one, and I love him. And Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, and we get Simon Pegg for the first time, and Billy Crudup. Like, this cast might be my favorite cast too. Mm-hmm. So everything about this one felt much more well-balanced, much more well thought out. I liked the wife addition because it gave the complexity and layers to Ethan Hunt as a character. And so the conflicting aspect of that's great. The mystery of the rabbit's foot and who's the mole in this one. It brought us back to the first one, but was also its own thing too. And I think that's because of this, collaboration between JJ and his guys. Like, I mean, he's always working with Orsi and Kurtzman. I mean, the three of them do a lot of stuff together, and you can tell. So Yeah, I think that this was a huge phew. Okay, they realized their mistakes and they're on the right track. And this one might be the most rewatchable for me too. I can go back and
I kind of agree with that as well.
Easily.
It's funny. In this, Tom Cruise apparently chose J.J. Abrams because in between movies, as he was looking for a director for this movie, he had watched the first season of Alias.
Wow,
and he loved it and said, "Get me a meeting with that guy."
Wow.
And that's how J.J. Abrams got this job.
That's fantastic. And I love that it was his directorial debut. That is fucking nuts. This is much like Rachel, this is an almost tie for me for favorite film in the franchise. But we'll come to that later. Tiny things I love in this movie. Greg Grunberg is in it. J.J. Abrams' Lucky Charm. Aaron Paul.
Yes, as the cousin or
as
the brother?
The younger brother.
As
Julia's younger brother in the party scene and then later on the phone. A pre-Breaking Bad, Aaron Paul. You guys are both correct. Hoffman as Owen Davian, my God, just such a spectacular bad guy. And it's funny, when you said the interrogation scene, I wasn't even thinking about that one. I was thinking of when Ethan is interrogating him on the cargo plane, and has him dangling.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many great sequences in this movie. The prison break scene, if you will, the transpo breakout scene where they get him on the bridge.
Yeah,
and that's an insane sequence. That is so ridiculous to watch. There's a lot that is so great about this movie. That definitely from the first two, and even the second one, which was crazy, the ratcheting up of the action sequences in this movie was crazy to me, and they all work.
Yeah,
is why it was so successful, I think, and why it was so well received. There were no motorcycles on a beach in slow motion scenes. And that's what I was so afraid we were going to get more of, and we didn't. It was terrific stuff, and the whole last act in China did not see that coming.
And they actually shot it there.
Yeah.
That
shot with Tom Cruise running
forever,
jumping off building tops, running past people, going into the background of the frame, coming into the foreground of the frame. That is such an ambitious shot for a first-time director. For J.J. Abrams and, oh my God, I can't believe I don't immediately know who the director of photography was on that movie, but for the two of them and Tom Cruise to all agree, yes, we should do this. Yes, we can do this. Let's fucking do this. That is no small feat, and that is hats off to them from a creative filmmaker standpoint. I'm Googling. Have I bought enough time to get it?
You have not vamped it up.
Dan Mindell.
Oh, yeah.
Dan Mindell. Thank you, Dan Mindell. Thank you, JJ. Thank you, Tom Cruise, for putting that shot in there that anyone who's ever been on a set went, holy fucking shit, they did it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a ridiculously hard shot to do.
This is a beautiful movie, by the way, too.
It really, and it sort of became, I don't want to say the calling card of that, because, I mean, they used camera trickery in an earlier shot in the same movie when he's on the building top, on the rooftop with Ving Rhames, and they do that long, wide push-in, and then the shot kind of pans around his face, and now it's a close-up without cutting. That's a beautiful shot, but that's camera tricks.
Yes.
The shot in China, that is practical. That's real, and that's amazing.
Yes. Now, the leap, that Shanghai leap, actually off the top of the building, which I guess you would call that's the big stunt of this movie, because what else is there? Because every one of these movies has like a big stunt, and I think it's the leap off the Shanghai Tower, even though it was achieved a little bit of CGI, a little bit of fakery. But Tom actually did leap off that tower.
Right.
And apparently his leap was over 2 kilometers long.
Oh my God.
His arc was 2 kilometers long.
Do you know who I want to be for these Mission Impossible movies? I want to be the insurance company. That when Paramount is like, oh, we're gonna do another Mission Impossible movie, and Tom wants to do most of his own stunts, it'd be like, cool. Your premium is $80 million. That's the best we can offer you, because when a 50-year-old man wants to leap off building tops on a fishing line, there's a significant amount of risk we're incurring here.
Yeah.
But I would say, the building leap, and then also, like I said, the bridge escape sequence with the drones, and that's probably another big sequence that probably cost them $10 million. But there were a lot of sequences. Let's see, what's the other big one? I don't know. Is there? It's not quite.
I mean, it's the Vatican.
Flashy, but the Vatican. I was gonna say it's not quite as flashy.
Yeah.
But there's there's that whole
which
that
they
whole sequence.
a fun fact about that is they had a whole fake film crew wandering around Rome, pretending to be the Mission Impossible film crew, so that they could drive into the opening courtyard of the Vatican and use that as their background. Because, you cannot film in the Vatican. It's impossible. Right. But what they did is they got as close as they could with John Rhys Meyers, put the camera there so that when he got out, you saw like the Vatican in the background, so it would look like he was in the Vatican. And to make sure that the security guards did not come after him, they did this big fake. They hired like a fake Tom Cruise impersonator, and they did a whole fake film shoot over there, so the guards would look over there, so they would do their shot very simply.
Wow. So they were filming Harvest Moon.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Are you? Cool. Come on, that's got to buy me some.
That's a deep cut.
Inner geekdom points between the two of you. Thank you very much.
All right, so let's move on into Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol in 2011, 5 years later, directed by Brad Bird, first-time live-action film director, and written by Josh Applebaum and Andre Nemec. The synopsis is Ethan and the entire IMF are blamed for the bombing of the Kremlin while investigating an individual known as Cobalt. He and 3 other agents are left to stop him from starting a global nuclear war. All right, let's talk about this. First Mission Impossible movie to not just be numbered. We now get the :/Ghost Protocol : /whatever. Like, dislike, what do you think about this?
It's fine, I guess.
It's a double, by the way, this is a double : title. It's Mission : Impossible :
That's kind
Ghost
of the
Protocol.
weird part of it, right? It's like one of those, what show has a fly in the wall? Like, why did they decide this was necessary? I mean, it's certainly intriguing. I mean, take it outside the context of being in a series that's never had the subtitle before. What does Ghost Protocol mean? It as a title and a standalone film, there's like a curiosity factor. Like, what is this in regards to in terms of the plot? What does that mean for Ethan and everybody? So, okay, I get it in that respect, I suppose.
What are your general thoughts on the movie, though, Rachel?
It's funny.
Is this your favorite, or
no? It is not. Which we now know means Rogue Nation is my favorite.
Yeah, it's Mission Impossible Fallout, right? The scene where Henry Cavill suddenly seduces a live-action Lucille Ball just blew our socks off.
And the winner is. Yeah, for me, this one is not one I've revisited very often. Mm-hmm. For me, this is the Dubai Tower one.
That's basically what it is.
Like, you want to talk about, of all the stunts and all the movies, isn't this the quintessential one?
I don't think they've beat this one. I don't think they have.
Yeah, I mean, just the way it was shot, and Brad Bird clearly was having a field day with the action stuff. I also adore Paula Patton. I think that she was wonderful in this movie. But I think it's just a little bit more forgettable to me in terms of plot. I mean, the specific things that I remember, even besides that, Josh Holloway at the beginning, Sawyer, this was in the middle of Lost fame.
It was. Yeah.
And some of the stuff towards the end. So was it in India, right?
The finale was the climax was in India.
Yeah. So I certainly remember things, but not in the same clear way I do with 1, 3, or 5. But still, like in terms of the progression, in terms of like where this series could go, I thought it was great in continuing to push the envelope, certainly with the action, certainly with, I thought the interesting idea is like, oh, Julie is dead, but she's not. And like, I liked that. Like, I do feel like that's an interesting thing. And then the mystery of Jeremy Renner's Branch, like, who is he, good guy, bad guy? And I like that you don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of specific things I remember that I liked, but as a whole, it doesn't stick with me as much as some of the others do.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Jeremy Renner's Brandt was originally supposed to replace Tom Cruise. he was supposed to be the new lead of the franchise. Now there are some
Because that works so well with Jason Bourne.
there's no proof out there on the internet, but in the production of this movie is when Bourne Legacy was released and quickly dropped off everybody's radar, and everyone thinks that is why Brandt suddenly didn't end this movie as the head of the IMF team.
Wow. That is shocking. And also, this is going to sound crazy, Jeremy Renner is not that much younger than Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
This would have bought them, what, 10 more years?
Well, we get a Mission Impossible movie like once every 5 years now, with the exception
this
of...
would have bought them, what, 2 more movies?
Yeah, 2 more movies.
Jeremy Renner was in his 40s when he did SWAT.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is... So that's... Jeremy Renner has to be approaching 50, right?
Yeah, Tom Cruise is like 56, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So, here, you guys have,
we have internet.
laptops and stuff in this room. Yeah, check it out. But that doesn't surprise me that might have been a studio thought, that perhaps originally the film could have ended in a way where it was maybe open-ended, like, oh, maybe Ethan really is done and now Brandt's going to take over. Yeah, I don't know. I certainly got a kick out of this movie because they had Josh Holloway in the trailers.
Yeah,
and
they did.
I fully assumed, J.J. Abrams is producing it, and maybe in 2006 he couldn't get Holloway any of the major roles in that movie because, Lost was only on the air maybe a full season by the time they were in production on it.
This is 2011, so Lost is over.
Lost is it's ending right when this movie is coming out, so they were probably in production same time, and he was like, oh, Josh, I want to make you a movie star now. Get over here. And that's certainly what it looked like to me watching all the TV spots and the trailers, and so it was shocking to have him die so quickly. I mean, just like Kerry Russell.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, wow, they get... Man, you know what? Something just occurred to me. If J.J. Abrams had hired you on a TV show and asked you to be in a Mission Impossible
You're going to die.
You're going to die in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, you're dead. Don't say yes. Well,
Jennifer Garner, don't do it. Scott, what's his name? Scott Speedman.
Yep.
Or Foley. Yep. The 2 Scotts. Stay out of here.
Anna Torv.
Michael Vartan. Do not do it.
Anna Torv, go away.
Yep. You guys are all dead. But I don't know. There were some really cool sequences, like the Dubai sequence, which I believe the Burj Khalifa
correct.
That's the white man way of pronouncing it.
You are
I'm
correct.
sure my pronunciation is awful, but that is I believe it is still currently the tallest building in the world.
It is still currently. It's 2,722 feet.
Yeah, but that's including the spire. I don't know how I feel about that.
Apparently they were 1,700 feet above.
Yeah,
ground level when they were filming that.
That is a lot.
It's funny because I really like that movie, and you do think about this movie as this is Tom Cruise hanging outside, that tower. It's so amazing, and you're just sitting there watching that. Especially like when I saw this movie in IMAX, and I could not. It made me uncomfortable because I was like, "Oh my god, he is gonna die! He is gonna die!" And the movie to me never matches the intensity of that sequence, but the movie goes on for like another half hour after this.
It does, yeah. And then they've got that. So then after the building, they've got the chase in the sandstorm,
and there's a fight with an old man in a garage, an automobile.
That's
garage.
the big finale.
That's the big
fight
finale.
With the old man in the garage, and that one is that's an unfortunate ending. It does not of the previous films, I guess the finale was underwhelming compared to some of the action sequences within it. But I don't know. I mean, it was a fun movie. I really enjoyed the movie.
It's a very enjoyable movie.
And I don't mind that the action sequence at the end isn't it's not the fireworks finale. Because I felt like there had been enough action provided throughout that I didn't feel like I could walk out of that movie and go, the action sequence is not good. I was underwhelmed. But yeah, it was great. And Léa Seydoux, by the way, in Inglourious Bastards. So fun to watch someone who was a relative unknown really start making her mark in Hollywood action movies.
Nice.
Because that's my point. Yeah, she went on to do James Bond. So Good for her. She's great.
Another fun fact about this is the fourth Mission Impossible movie, but it's also the first one where none of the antagonists are former IMF agents. 4 movies in, we finally got to that. All right.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Something just occurred to me that none of us mentioned for 3 or Ghost Protocol, Simon Pegg.
Oh, that's right. Benji, the first appearance of Benji.
And, so they added comic relief in MI3. And it's so easy to accidentally have your comic relief be Jar Jar Binks in an action movie.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. And I'm so glad it didn't accidentally happen.
He's a nice addition to the franchise.
He's a solid addition to the franchise because they used him perfectly in Mission Impossible 3, which is to say he's behind a computer or a desk the whole time.
Yeah.
He's only helping from afar. And it went really well, and people liked that. And so they took it to the next level in Ghost Protocol. They were like, no, let's get him in the field. And the whole time he's in the field, he's doing the right thing, which is saying, I'm not a field agent.
Yeah.
I don't belong here. The stakes are too high for me. I'm very comfortable behind a desk, which is what you want to hear from someone in that position.
Yeah.
They don't oversell it. It's not when Rick Moranis puts on a proton pack and goes out at the end of Ghostbusters 2. You're like, this doesn't feel right to me. He should be saying, I don't belong in this proton pack. What am I doing here? This feels wrong. And so that's why it works.
Nice.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, he's a strong addition to the franchise, and now he's been in more Mission Impossible movies than there haven't been Benji. You know what the reason why he's in this movie is kind of a joke?
I don't know.
I can't remember the movie that he was doing press for, but in the interview, they asked him about like his success and his career and where are you going to go next. And he knew Mission Impossible 3 was filming because his buddy was JJ. And he said, oh, it's not like I'm going to be cast in Mission Impossible 3 or anything. JJ Abrams called him the very next day.
Yep, that's exactly. I've heard that as well. Yeah, he says, because they asked him. I think the question was, I think he might have been promoting Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
and they asked him so are you going to stick with the smaller movies where you have control and everything? Or are you going to go all Hollywood on us? And he said something along the lines of, it's not like I'm going to start doing Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah.
And there you go.
And there he is. All right, let's move into Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, released in 2015. It's the shortest gap between any two of these movies. Directed and written by Christopher McQuarrie, the synopsis is Ethan Hunt comes under the threat from the Syndicate, a near-mythical organization of rogue agents who kill to order. Faced with the IMS disbanded, Hunt assembles his team for the mission to prove the Syndicate's existence and bring the organization down by any means necessary. Now, I love that they added the Syndicate into this movie because not only is they teased it at the end of Ghost Protocol, you hear him get the call about the Syndicate, but the Syndicate was a big antagonist in the original television series. So it's a nice little homage back to the original television. So also, I like when spies get giant organizations like Spectre, like James Bond's Spectre. And I like that Mission Impossible finally got there on screen. What do you feel about the Syndicate? How do you feel about Rogue Nation, Rachel?
In case I wasn't clear earlier, it is by far my favorite Mission Impossible movie. I love 3. I love it. And I love 1. But this one took all of the things that I loved about the various other movies, even, maybe something from 2. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. And put it all in one movie in a way that I think it's incredibly smart. I think that this one isn't all about the big action. I think that there's the one water sequence or the
in the server
room under the water, and that was pretty spectacular. I liked the close hand-to-hand combat stuff, and this movie the best of all the movies in terms of that stuff goes. I love the idea of this shadowy organization, that wants to work behind the scenes in this really nefarious way, and so there's no way you can trust anybody. And they come out of the gate swinging at the very beginning. I mean, he's captured. The record store scene's a great way to set everything up, and then Ilsa Faust. I mean, Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She is beyond amazing in this movie. And one of the greatest things about it is, I mean, we did learn in Ghost Protocol that his wife is still alive. This isn't about a romantic connection. This is about a professional connection. She rescues his ass, does it in a spectacular fashion. So we have a great intro to her character. And then, again, similar to Brandt in the previous film, who's she working for? Is she a double agent? Is she a triple agent? Like, what's going on here? And I love the mystery of that, but I loved their chemistry as coworkers and not as necessarily romantic. And she's incredible. The opera scene, from the dress to the action to all of it, and I loved all of these pieces. So you have all these characters. You have this great villain. You have Sean Harris, whose voice alone is a spectacular villain. And I think this one is the smartest of the movies, and it's the strongest story-wise and character-wise. And Alec Baldwin's a great addition, and
the former Jack Ryan.
Yeah, like there's a lot of still fun little bits to it, but to me, it's the one that in every way, a movie can be good. It's good, and it's sort of like accumulative, I guess, is the way I'd best look at it, and that's why I'm so excited that Fallout is literally picking up where we left off in this movie. So we do have McQuarrie coming back. So I think, kind of talking about what you said earlier, and all of these films sort of being their own thing, but they have been building to a place where now it's a true sequel in the sense of where the pretty much all these
they're not sort of
characters
one-offs
are coming
anymore
back.
Like James Bond.
Yeah. I don't think my guess is, still haven't seen it, but my guess is you would not particularly understand Fallout if you hadn't seen Rogue Nation. I think it would be difficult.
Yeah.
But we'll see soon.
You are correct. Ms. Christopher McQuarrie does do something very smart in this movie, is that this movie is very much about the giant action sequences, which is something that I love of the Mission Impossible franchise. Again, I'm putting on a record here that I think we're going to watch Tom Cruise die for a Mission Impossible movie for some crazy stunt, but those don't overwhelm the movie. Yeah, this is a very smart spy movie. How do you feel about this, Sam?
Unfortunately, I have to plead a little bit of ignorance. This is the Mission Impossible movie I've seen the fewest times of any of them, which is to say I saw it one time in theaters 3 years ago. And that's my fault. It's not that I did not enjoy the movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I remember having a great time in the theater. And so I remember very few things about it. I remember Rebecca Ferguson being great. I remember the underwater sequence. But I am old school. I watch movies mostly as they appear on cable, and I have DirecTV, and so this movie has never come on any of my DirecTV channels.
Wow, in 3 years.
It must be on Epix.
Okay.
If it's on cable at all. So I owe myself a serious rewatching of this movie before I see Fallout. And I probably should have done a little more research on it, but well, frankly, I just didn't have time.
It's all
you
good.
are very punctual.
Yeah.
So I remember enjoying it, and I remember, what's the bad guy's name?
Solomon Lane.
Solomon Lane, played by
Sean
Sean Harris. He was fucking great. You got a voice like that, you better be a bad guy.
Yeah.
That's he was tremendous, and like you said, the Syndicate being a part of the thing. I remember reading an advance review talking about how the Syndicate was a major thing in the TV series, and I remember thinking, wow, they're 5 movies in, and they're just getting to a huge part of the series. That's ballsy. Because there's anytime they make one of these movies, if they make a Mission Impossible movie and for whatever reason it tanks, that's the end of it.
Yeah. It's over.
They're laying out $200+ million every time they make one of these and promote it. So if it misfires and only makes $100 million worldwide, they're fucked and will never get another one.
Yeah.
So that was a ballsy play to take 5 movies to bring the Syndicate in. Not unlike a ballsy move for them to take that long to bring Spectre into the new James Bond franchise. But it obviously has worked. At least it worked for Mission Impossible. It remains to be seen whether it's really worked for the James Bond franchise. But I was excited. I thought that was a really cool thing. And it allows the bad guy world to extend as far out as they want.
Yeah.
Within the realm of no, these are bad guys who are all working together, so the conspiracy can go as fucking deep as they want. And that's a great tool for the series.
I also want to talk about something in this movie that I really it irks me, yet I admire the hell out of it. Tom Cruise hanging outside of a plane. It was in every trailer. It was the first IMAX. This is the big stunt of the movie.
Yep.
It's in the first 5 minutes.
Yes, it sure is.
I love it and I hate it at the same time. But I admire that Christopher McQuarrie is like, yeah, let's just forget it. Like, once they get past it, it'll be all good. We'll use it to sell the movie and who cares. But then at the same time, I'm like, I kind of think I go back to the leaping outside the tower where I'm like, man, why wouldn't you make that part of your climax? But then, I don't know. I go, how do you guys feel about the big stunt, hanging outside the window? We'd seen it so many times in every trailer.
Right. We'd seen it in every trailer, and then they talked about it to death promoting the movie.
Yeah.
The fact that it really was Tom Cruise strapped to the side of a plane that was taking
with
off
special
and landing.
contacts so he could open his eyes.
Yeah. I mean, that's nuts right there. And again, I want to be the insurance company that collects the premium for Tom Cruise being his own stuntman in these movies. It was a great stunt, and it was smart of them, knowing we see it in the first 5 minutes and then that's that, to talk about it so openly.
Yep.
Because that way anyone will stop giving away the best stuff. Anyone who works for the studio can be like, trust me,
Yep.
That's the tip of the iceberg. So I have no problem with it.
I adore it. I think it's the smartest thing they could have done, because clearly, like, in my like whole like praising this movie, I didn't even mention it because it was part of the campaign. It happened at the beginning of the movie. It's a wow moment, but everything else about this movie was more character driven and more plot driven and more interesting to me as for me as a movie goer. I like the big action sequences, but to me, them on their own is not that interesting to me. I want the movie to live up to it in all the other ways, and this movie does. So, yes, trick us. Fine. I'm so on board with you, like, selling the hell out of this thing, getting it out of the way, and then saying, okay, and here's my movie. And it is freaking amazing on its own.
Yeah, just relax and enjoy.
Yes, exactly. I've got plenty more coming for you. And there are action sequences and they're beautiful, and I think this one is shot very well too. But like, I think that's like, it's just clever on the part of McQuarrie. And I get the idea of your biggest action should be your climax, but I'm also a big fan of turning tropes on their head.
Sure.
As long as you do it in a way that still appeals to, the largest majority, and still tells a good story and still a good movie, which I think this movie did. So,
well, we've gotten through all the Mission Impossible movies. Of course, we all enjoyed Mission Impossible Fallout, especially the scene where Tom Cruise rode the herd of horses right straight through the streets of London. Mm-hmm. That was pretty impressive. Yep. And jumped onto the hot air balloon in mid takeoff.
Yeah. And that scene where Pee Wee Herman comes in with the Uzi.
That was great.
Takes out half of the agents of the syndicate.
I'm just glad that he's going to now get an exposure to a new audience.
Still working.
Yeah.
Has not slowed down.
Yeah, love it. I love it. So where do you feel? Let's talk about the franchise as a whole. How many more Mission Impossibles do you think they can pull out? And do you see a point where maybe this franchise does get handed off to another actor?
Well, first, let's answer my question from 20 minutes ago. Do we have an age difference between Tom Cruise and Jeremy Renner?
Tom Cruise is 9 years older than Jeremy Renner.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All
so
right.
like I said, that at best gets you 2, maybe 3 extra movies. So where does the franchise go from here? I sincerely hope Fallout is as good as we all want it to be.
The early reviews say it is.
Yep. So that being said, I sincerely hope that they continue to churn these out one every 2 to 3 years, as long as they can, because we're already stuck as moviegoers in this world where studios only want safe plays. They only want to make movies that are existing franchises with known quantity movie stars who are going to bring in X amount every time worldwide. So as long as we're already stuck in that, I'm fine with Tom Cruise and the Mission Impossible movies because they're all really good.
Yeah.
I cannot say the same for other franchises that keep turning out movies.
It is impressive. It's a pretty solid franchise with only one stinker in the whole batch.
Yes.
Out of 6.
Out of 6, yeah, presumably.
So
I hope they keep doing that. I hope Tom Cruise keeps making them until he decides he's just physically unable to do them,
or is killed by these stunts,
or is But look, as long as he has Xenu protecting him, I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, sure.
So I legitimately hope we get at least 3 more out of him.
Wow.
At least 3. That would be terrific. As far as if they wanted to hand it off to somebody else, I don't know. I mean, it's tough because, the easy example is to say, look at James Bond.
Yeah.
They did it. But I don't know. It was a different time, and it's tough to me because James Bond, it was a series of books.
Yeah.
If Mission Impossible was a TV series, and a lot of the fans, I would say the bulk of the fans of the Mission Impossible movies, have no idea anything about the series.
Oh, exactly. They have no idea that show exists.
They're way too young. It never appealed to them. So for them, Tom Cruise is
Mission Impossible.
Whereas at the time when James Bond was happening, a lot of the people were like, oh, I love that book. I kind of want to see how it turns out. Mm-hmm. So it was not the hardest pill to swallow when Connery said, I'm done. So I don't know, but I'd like to think if Renner as Brandt, if Henry Cavill, somebody who it's not totally implausible for them to somehow pick up the mantle in a way that's not disrespectful, where it feels organic. Yeah. If they wanted to continue the franchise, as I'm certainly sure the Paramount Studios will want to, if they do it the perfect way, I'm fine with it, and I'd like to hope the fans would be fine with it. But I think we're still at least 1, if not 2 movies away from that being a reality.
It'll be interesting to see the point where Tom Cruise is like, I'm done with Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Because again, it is his only franchise in a very franchise-heavy Hollywood.
Yeah. Would he have done a sequel to The Mummy if it hadn't have been so terrible?
I bet he would.
Okay.
I bet he would have.
All right. Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Rachel, how do you feel? Where do you feel? Because I also have the idea that I would love, although it is you have a very great point about the Mission Impossible franchise being so deeply tied to Tom Cruise. I've always thought it'd be interesting to see it return back to television, especially in this world of streaming.
Yeah, I'm with Sam in the sense that I think that we've got a few more in the current series, especially coming off the absolute high that was Rogue Nation, and from what it seems by early reviews, Fallout is continuing that. I want to ride that train for a while because I just think that has been its pinnacle.
That was a great part of Mission Impossible Fallout, by the way, the train sequence with all the clowns.
Yeah, I mean,
riding that train.
Clearly, this one's going to give my favorite a run for its money, obviously. So, I'd been having this conversation with people about summer movies this year, and this movie topped so many people's lists as something that they were looking forward to, even over Ant-Man and Wasp. And
I'm going to be sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to be honest. I think I'm more excited for Mission Impossible Fallout than I was Infinity War, and I'm a big comic book nerd.
Right. I mean, Sam's pointing to himself, and it is not a surprise. But. So clearly, we are at the height of Mission Impossible right now. So now is not the time to be getting out. I think that, and Cruise knows that, and I'm certain Paramount knows that. And I think we're going to have at least 2 more with him. And then it's going to largely depend on what Cruise wants to do. I mean, he's already seemingly ageless, but it's incredible.
I think that's the subtitle of the next Mission Impossible movie. Mission Impossible Ageless.
But he's gonna have to hang up the mantle. And it's funny, I think I disagree with Sam in the sense of I think I would like a From Ground Zero reboot after that. I think that I would like to see a whole new team come in, a younger, a different, maybe even somewhat a little bit more unknown, not dissimilar to what Daniel Craig did with Bond, because he wasn't a huge star at that point. And then what Casino Royale did was it gave Bond a new tone that it hadn't had before. It was a little rougher, it was a little edgier, it was a little darker. And I feel like Mission Impossible could have that same kind of new spin on it.
You
like
could
there's
throw it
certain
back to
tropes
yeah.
you have to go to, but I feel like, in 10 years, the next J.J. Abrams comes in
Sure.
and says, I got this like slightly different take on it, and I got this guy, and I feel like it's a franchise that has the ability to take a little twisting, but still honor what it was before. And I'd be curious to see what that next visionary would do with it.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. I don't disagree. If somebody wanted to come in and redo it a la Daniel Craig, more of an origin thing, that'd be fine, because then we can get Jim Phelps back from the dead.
That's what I was going to say. Jim Phelps,
when he's still a good guy,
is the lead of the TV show. Ethan Hunt never appears anywhere in the TV show. He's a brand new character they created movie. So yeah, you could throw it back to Jim Phelps and I think accomplish exactly what you were talking about.
If they wanted to reboot it and have Jim Phelps be the guy,
yeah,
that'd be fine, because then it would be a lot less distasteful to people who, I'm sure at the time were like, Sean Connery's the only true Bond. Who's this new guy? Get him out of here. I don't know why they were so angry, but they were.
There were some reviews like that for the very first Mission Impossible. You can go find them online where people were like, what did you do to Jim Phelps? He's the hero.
Yeah. So if they wanted to do new, Mission Impossible, whatever, as the Jim Phelps thing, that's fucking great if they want to do that. I mean, that's the good news, is there's any number of ways they could do it. So I guess that to me would be more palatable, and probably to more people would be more palatable than if they wanted to try to continue the franchise and the storylines where they are now, but make a different character the focal point. But let's cross that bridge when we come to it, guys. We've still got, we got Fallout, then we have Mission Impossible Ageless Wonder.
Yep.
Then we have Mission Impossible Early Retirement. Mission Impossible Bingo Night.
Bingo Night, sounds good.
And finally Mission Impossible Eulogy. It's sad, guys. It's sad. The series took a dark turn, but we knew what we were getting into.
I actually could see Eulogy actually being one of the subtitles. Oh, man. All right. Rachel and Sam, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation about Mission Impossible franchise. Sam, would you please let our listeners know if you have any upcoming projects that they should check out or where they can find you online?
Yes, thank you. Well, you can find me online on the Twitters and the Instagrams. I'm at Samm Levine, SAMM. Levine. And let's see, coming up soon, you can see me on Bobcat Goldthwait's Misfits and Monsters on True TV. I don't know an exact air date for that, but the show itself just started airing a week ago. It's on Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, I believe. It's an anthology series. Every episode is different. They're so good and so dark and so funny and interesting and cool. Please watch this show because I want Bobcat to get to make more of them. I'm on one of them at some point. And then I'm on a Crackle series called Rob Riggle's Ski Master Academy, which I've just found out is going to drop on Crackle on August 23rd.
Nice.
And that's one of the goofiest, silliest, funniest
I'm in on just
things
the title
I've ever been a part of, and I'm very anxious to actually see it.
Nice. Rachel, how about yourself?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Rachel J. Cushing. I'm always up for, geeky discussions, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, geeky movies in general. And you can catch me on the Movie Trivia Schmodown on Collider's YouTube page every once in a while. So, yeah.
Nice. Don't forget to follow this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, basically everywhere you put podcasts in your ear holes. And also don't forget we have a Patreon, patreon.com/Jawiin, Jawiin. And we always do extra Geek History lessons over there. And if I can convince Sam and Rachel to stick around for another 10 minutes, we're going to be talking about some of their other favorite movies and other stuff like that. But upcoming, we have the Batman Mask of the Phantasm commentary, so you can check out over there. So go over there, support this free podcast because we want to make sure this podcast stays free for you. Patreon.com/Jawiin. This has been Geek History Lesson. I'm Jason Inman, and this podcast will self-destruct in less than 10 seconds.